I just made a small update to my personal website and I'm really proud of it. And in this video, I want to talk about how I did that. I'm talking about this Spotify embed which tells you what song have I been obsessed with over the last 7 days. This thing changes based on my listening habits. It automatically tracks my listening habits and figures out what song have I been obsessed with over the last 7 days, and it changes the embed here. You can play the song, you can save it on Spotify and do all the things that you can do with a Spotify embed. So, how did I do that? Using Spotify embeds in your website is not a new thing. You can go to the Spotify web app or the Spotify app on your desktop, and then you can copy the song embed from here and then paste it in your HTML like this, and you can embed the component in your website. It's very straightforward. However, this is static, and I want to talk about how to make that dynamic. Now, if you notice the embed link, the iframe code here, you realize that the only thing that will change here is the source URL. The source URL would change based on the song that you are selecting. And so for me, what I needed to do was basically figure out what song have I been listening to the most for the last 7 days and then get this embed URL. If I can do those two things, just two simple things, I would be able to make this component that will keep on changing based on my listening habits. So yes, I just had to do the two things. I needed to get my most streamed song from the last week and I needed to generate the URL for the Spotify embed. To get the most streamed song from the last week, I first thought that I can go to the Spotify web API. So I went to the Spotify web API and I realized that it only returns you the most streamed songs for either 4 weeks, 6 months, or a year, not for 7 days. And that was a deal breaker for me. So I started looking for other options and I wanted to see if there is some other API that I can use that can tell me what song have I been listening to for the last 7 days. And luckily, there's this thing called Last.fm. For those of you who don't know, Last.fm is a third-party service that you can connect to your Spotify, your YouTube Music. It will track your listening habits and it also has an API that you can use to get the data from your profile. So for instance, right now, if you go to my profile, you'll see that I've been listening to these songs for the last 7 days. This is the number of times I've listened to the song. I don't really need the number, I just needed the top song from the last 7 days. I used the Last.fm API, and using the Last.fm API, I was able to get the most listened song from the last week from my Spotify. And now, what Last.fm API returned me was the song name and the artist name. Remember, I still need to figure out the URL for the Spotify embed. So now we are one step closer. We had the song name and the artist name. From the song name and the artist name, I wanted to get to the embed part. To get to the embed part, I went back to the Spotify API and I was like, okay, now I have the song name and the artist name. Does Spotify API allows me to get the Spotify URL? Turns out it does. If I go to the Spotify API, there is a search tag here, and if I search for item, and inside of the search for item, I can type in the song name, I can type in the artist name, and then I can get the URL for the song, the Spotify URL for the song. So based on the song name and the artist name that I got from the last FM, I got the Spotify URL for the song. But the Spotify URL, as it turns out, is different from the embed URL. And if I put the Spotify URL inside of this source URL here in the iframe, it doesn't work. So then I did a little bit of more digging in and I realized there's another API that Spotify provides. It's called the Spotify Embed API. I will show you how it looks. I go to Spotify Embed API. This is the Spotify Embed API, and what it basically allows you to do is you put in the song URL and then it returns you the iframe that you can put in your website. So convenient for my use case. So that's what I did. I took the song URL and then I made another request to the Spotify Embed API, and that's how I was able to make this component. It's super cool how I had to use like 3 different APIs just to make this work, and I did a little bit of Next.js magic here. So basically, if I show you the code, this is a server action that I wrote, and the server action basically makes 3 API requests. First, it makes a request to the Last.fm API, then to the Spotify API with the user, the song name and the artist name, and then to the embed API to get the HTML that we need to embed in our website. And since I'm using Next.js, I was able to stream in the data that we get from this embed into my website whenever it was available, without having to block the entire web page and without having the web page to wait for it to get all this data. And so I used this magical stuff that Next.js provides, and it looks beautiful. I make a reload and you see everything stays the same, only the embed part loads in whenever it is ready. And this is dynamic. It changes based on my listening habits. It's a nice little personal touch that I was able to add, and I'm super excited and super proud to show you this. But yeah, that's all for this video. I hope you like it. If you have any comment, suggestion, thoughts, leave a comment, and I will see you in the next video.